I stood in the corner of the Riverside Country Club's grand ballroom, champagne flute in hand, watching my sister Victoria hold court like she always did. The crystal chandeliers cast perfect light on her designer dress. Probably cost more than my monthly salary, not that she'd ever asked what I made. Around her, a circle of perfectly coiffed women in cocktails dresses laughed at something she'd said, their manicured hands gesturing with wine glasses that caught the light. I was wearing my dress blues, full Marine Corps uniform because this was a formal event and that's what the invitation specified. Formal attire. But apparently that wasn't what Victoria had in mind. Her voice carried across the room, that particular pitch she used when she wanted to sound casual, but make sure everyone heard. My little sister? Oh, she's wasting her prime years playing soldier. No real career, no money. Probably regrets not following my path into investment banking. Her friends laughed. That polite, knowing laugh that said they all agreed but were too well-bred to say it out loud. I took a slow sip of champagne and looked toward the entrance. Through the glass doors, I could see them arriving. 12 Marines in dress blue uniforms, walking with that unmistakable precision we drill into our bones. They had a large presentation case with them, though from this distance I couldn't see the details. No one else had noticed them yet. Victoria was still talking. If you've ever been the disappointment in your family's eyes, this story is for you. Stay until the end. I promise you'll see why silence is sometimes the most powerful weapon. And hey, if this resonates, hit subscribe. You're going to want to follow this journey. But I should back up. Because this didn't start at Victoria's engagement party. It started a long time ago, in a house in Connecticut, where success only looked one way, and I was never going to fit the mold. The Carter house in Greenwich, Connecticut was exactly what you'd expect from an upper-middle-class family that cared deeply about appearances. My father, Robert Carter, was a partner at Morrison & Associates, one of those law firms with offices that looked like they belonged in a movie about powerful men making important decisions. My mother, Patricia, was a marketing executive at a firm in Manhattan, the kind of woman who could network at a charity gala and make it look effortless. They'd built exactly the life they wanted. The colonial house with the circular driveway, the country club membership, the vacation home in the Hamptons. 2 daughters who would, naturally, continue the legacy of success. Except one of those daughters had other ideas. I was 10 years old the first time I realized I was different from Victoria. She was 15 then, already everything my parents dreamed of. Honor roll every semester, captain of the debate team, first chair violin in the school orchestra. Her bedroom walls were covered with certificates and ribbons, carefully framed and arranged by our mother. Debate champion, state piano competition winner, National Honor Society. My walls had posters of soccer players and a map of the world with pins in places I wanted to visit someday. That particular evening, I was sitting on the floor of the family room trying to build a model aircraft carrier I'd bought with my allowance. Dad had just gotten home from work, his leather briefcase making that expensive thud when he set it down in the foyer. "Trish," he called out, "Victoria's acceptance letter from the summer program at Yale came today." The house erupted. Mom rushed down from her home office. Victoria came gliding down the stairs in that way she'd perfected, like she was already walking into an important board meeting. Even our grandmother, who was visiting for the week, emerged from the guest room. I stayed on the floor with my aircraft carrier. They gathered in the kitchen, the good kitchen, not the everyday one, and popped a bottle of champagne. I heard the cork pop, heard the excited voices overlapping each other. I knew you'd get in. "Yale, Victoria, Yale! Wait until we tell the Hendersons." I carefully glued the deck piece onto my carrier and waited. Eventually, someone would remember I existed. It was Grandma who found me first. "Elaine, sweetheart, aren't you going to congratulate your sister?" I looked up. "That's cool. Good job, Victoria." Victoria appeared in the doorway, champagne flute in hand at 15 because our parents had different rules for her. She looked at my aircraft carrier, then at me. "Still playing with toys, Lainey? When are you going to grow up?" I was 10. But that was how it always was. Victoria was growing up, maturing, becoming successful. I was always still in some phase I'd eventually grow out of. 4 years later, I was 14 and Victoria was 19, home from Yale for Thanksgiving break. She'd gained that collegiate confidence, that way of talking about my professors and the library at Sterling that made her sound impossibly sophisticated. The whole family was at dinner: aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents. One of those productions my mother orchestrated like a military campaign, though she'd never appreciate that comparison. The table was set with the good china, the kind we weren't allowed to touch growing up. Turkey perfectly golden, sides arranged like a magazine spread. Victoria was holding court again, talking about her internship prospects for the summer. Goldman Sachs was interested. So was Morgan Stanley. "The recruiters love Yale students," she said, cutting her turkey with precise movements. "The network is just incredible." Dad beamed. "That's my girl, always thinking ahead." I pushed my mashed potatoes around my plate and waited for the question I knew was coming. Uncle Tom, Dad's brother, turned to me with that expression adults get when they're about to pretend to be interested in a kid's life. "And how about you, Elaine? What are you thinking about for college?" This was my moment. I'd been waiting for it, actually. Preparing. I reached down beside my chair and pulled out the brochure I'd been carrying around for weeks. The cover showed Marines in dress blues, crisp and perfect, with the motto, "The few, the proud." "Actually," I said, "I've been researching the Marine Corps. They have really good education benefits, and I could serve for a few years, then use the GI Bill for—" The table went silent. Not the good kind of silent, the bad kind, where everyone's fork stops halfway to their mouth and you can feel the temperature drop. Mom's face had gone pale. "This is not funny, Elaine." "I'm not trying to be funny. I've been reading about—" "Stop." Dad's voice had that edge I'd only heard a few times before. The lawyer voice, the one that made junior associates scramble. "This is not a conversation we're having at Thanksgiving dinner, or ever." "But you're 14 years old." Mom's voice was shaking. "You don't know what you're talking about. This is some phase because you saw a movie or something." Victoria laughed, that particular laugh that somehow sounded both amused and pitying. "God, Elaine, you're so desperate for attention. What's next? You're going to tell us you want to be an astronaut? A firefighter? The Marines is a real, no daughter of mine." Mom pushed back from the table, her chair scraping hard against the floor. She was actually crying. "I can't do this. I can't sit here and listen to this." She left, just walked out of the dining room, and we could hear her heels clicking rapidly up the stairs. Dad threw his napkin on the table. "Look what you did. Look what your little joke did to your mother." "It's not a joke." But he was already following Mom upstairs. The rest of the family sat in awkward silence. Aunt Marie tried to change the subject. Uncle Tom looked at his plate. Victoria smirked at me across the turkey centerpiece. "Real smooth, Laney," she whispered. "Way to ruin Thanksgiving." Grandma patted my hand. "It's just a phase, dear. You'll understand when you're older." But it wasn't a phase, and I wouldn't understand. Because what I was starting to understand right there at that Thanksgiving table was that my family didn't just have different plans for me than Victoria. They had different amounts of investment, different levels of belief, different degrees of love. The pattern became clear over the next few years. Victoria got the private SAT tutor, $5,000 for a comprehensive prep course. I got told to check out a book from the library. Victoria's college fund was openly discussed at dinner, enough for 4 years at an Ivy League school plus living expenses. Mine was, well, it existed. Probably. "You can go to UConn if you keep your grades up," Dad told me once. "It's a good state school." Victoria's bedroom got renovated the summer she turned 16. New everything. Furniture, paint, a walk-in closet, built-in shelving for all her debate trophies and academic awards. She got a MacBook Pro for Christmas every year, the newest model because she needs the best tools for success. My room still had the furniture from when I was 8. The desk was too small, the bed frame had princess decals I'd tried to scrape off, and I shared the family computer with Dad, which meant I got to use it when he wasn't working from home, which was never. Victoria's piano recitals were family events. Mom took the day off work. Dad rescheduled client meetings. Grandparents drove up from Florida. We all sat in the concert hall in our best clothes and watched Victoria perform Chopin with perfect precision. I made varsity soccer as a freshman, which was almost unheard of at our high school. The coach said I had exceptional field awareness and leadership potential. My parents came to exactly 0 games that season. We had a work thing, Mom said when I asked about it after the championship game, which we won, and where I scored the winning goal. Was it important? I asked. Of course it was important, Elaine. I can't just leave work for... She trailed off, but I heard what she didn't say. For something like that. The next week, Victoria had a piano recital. Mom took the afternoon off. Dad left work early. They hired a professional photographer. I stopped asking them to come to games after that. But I kept playing, and I kept getting better. By junior year, I was team captain. I had a 3.8 GPA. I volunteered at the local Veterans Center every Saturday, helping with their community outreach programs. I didn't tell my parents about any of it. What was the point? They'd find some way to make it about Victoria. That's nice, dear, but did you hear your sister got promoted to analyst? She's the youngest in her class to get that position. The Veterans Center became my refuge. There was something about the men and women there. They saw things differently. They asked about my life and actually listened to the answers. They told stories about their service, about places they'd been, things they'd done that mattered. Mr. Rodriguez, a Vietnam vet who ran the center's food pantry, noticed me reading a book about military history one Saturday. "You thinking about serving?" he asked. I looked up, surprised that someone had asked it like a real question instead of a joke. Maybe. I don't know. My family, let me guess, they have other plans for you. Something like that. He nodded slowly. My parents wanted me to take over the family restaurant. Thought I was crazy when I enlisted. But you know what? Military taught me things I never could have learned in that kitchen. Leadership, purpose, brotherhood. Sometimes the path people plan for you isn't the path you're meant to walk. Those words stuck with me through the rest of high school, through Victoria's graduation from Yale with honors, through the family party where everyone toasted her acceptance of a position at Goldman Sachs, through my own graduation, which was a smaller affair. Just immediate family, no extended relatives, no photographer. Through the night, I filled out my application for the Marines. I waited until after Victoria's graduation party to tell them. That big, expensive party at the country club with 200 guests and a band and a cake that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Victoria in a white dress like she was already a bride, holding court with her college friends and her new Wall Street colleagues, everyone drinking expensive champagne and talking about their signing bonuses. I wore a sundress from Target and stayed near the dessert table. The Monday after, I found my parents in the kitchen. Morning coffee, Dad reading the Wall Street Journal, Mom checking emails on her iPad. Normal. I put the paperwork on the kitchen island between them. I enlisted, I said. I leave for boot camp in 6 weeks. Mom looked at the papers like they were contaminated. You what? I enlisted in the Marine Corps. I already took the ASVAB, did the physical, met with the recruiter. It's done. Dad picked up the papers slowly, reading them with his lawyer eyes, looking for the loophole, the escape clause. There wasn't one. You can't do this, Mom said. Her voice was rising, getting that hysterical edge. You can't just throw your life away. Victoria worked so hard to set an example for you. I'm not Victoria. Obviously, Mom was standing now, pacing. Victoria would never do something so reckless, so stupid. Do you have any idea what people will say? What am I supposed to tell the Hendersons, the Mitchells? Oh, our youngest daughter decided to play soldier instead of going to college. I'm going to college, I said, eventually, with the GI Bill. It's actually a really good... Don't expect any financial support for this ridiculous decision, Dad cut in. His voice was cold, controlled, scarier than Mom's yelling. If you're going to make adult choices, you can handle adult consequences. You want to throw away the opportunities we've given you? Fine, but you'll do it on your own. Victoria appeared in the doorway in her silk pajamas, the expensive kind from that store in Manhattan. She'd been living at home while she looked for an apartment in the city, soaking up praise and free rent. What's all the yelling about? She asked, then saw the papers. Oh my God, Elaine, are you serious right now? Dead serious. Victoria laughed. Actually laughed. like this was the funniest thing she'd ever heard. Well, at least someone has to embarrass the family. Thanks for taking that role, I guess. God, Lainey, what are you trying to prove? I'm not trying to prove anything. Right. You're just coincidentally deciding to join the military right after my graduation, right after I got this amazing job. You couldn't stand that I was getting attention, so you had to do something dramatic to make it about you. That stung, specifically because a tiny part of me wondered if she was right. Was I doing this for the wrong reasons? Was this just some elaborate rebellion? But then I thought about Mr. Rodriguez's words, about the way I felt when I read about Marine Corps history, about operations and missions and people working together towards something bigger than themselves, about how I'd felt playing soccer, not for the glory, but for the team, for the strategy, for the sense of purpose. Think whatever you want, Victoria, I said. I'm doing this. Mom was crying for real now. You're ruining your life. You're ruining everything we worked for. No, I said quietly. I'm choosing my own life. That's not the same thing. I left the kitchen, went upstairs and started packing. I had 6 weeks to save money, get my affairs in order, and prepare for the biggest change of my life. I'd be doing it alone. The summer before boot camp was the loneliest of my life. I picked up every shift I could get at the coffee shop downtown, saving every penny. Victoria moved into her Manhattan penthouse. Dad paid the first year's rent as a congratulations gift, and my parents threw her another party for her first day of work. I watched the photos on Facebook from my twin bed in my childhood room. Victoria in designer work clothes. Victoria with her new colleagues at some rooftop bar. Victoria in front of the Goldman Sachs building, smiling like she'd conquered the world. My feed was quieter. A few friends from high school commenting on my enlistment with variations of, "That's so brave," and "Thank you for your service." But it felt hollow. They didn't really understand. Neither did I yet. I kept going to the Veterans Center on Saturdays. Mr. Rodriguez introduced me to other vets, and they told me what to expect. The physical challenges, the mental ones, the way boot camp breaks you down to build you back up, the importance of relying on your unit. It's not like the movies, a woman named Sarah told me. She'd served in Iraq as a medic. It's harder, but it's real, you know? There's no faking it. You either perform or you don't. Your family name doesn't matter. Your bank account doesn't matter. What matters is whether you can do the job and whether your unit can trust you. That sounded perfect to me. The day I shipped out to Paris Island, my high school soccer coach picked me up at 5 a.m., Coach Williams, who'd seen something in me that my parents never bothered to look for. "Your family's not coming?" she asked when I walked out with just my duffel bag. "They're busy," I said. "Victoria has an important presentation today." Coach Williams pressed her lips together but didn't say anything. She drove me to the recruitment station where the bus was waiting. Before I got out, she grabbed my arm. "Elaine, listen to me. Whatever you're looking for out there, purpose, respect, family, you're going to find it. But not because you're running away from something, because you're running towards something. Don't forget that." I nodded, not trusting my voice. "And for what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I've always been proud of you." I hugged her, probably too hard, and got on the bus. Paris Island in July was exactly as miserable as everyone said it would be. Heat that felt solid, like you could touch it. Humidity that made your uniform stick to your skin within minutes. Sand fleas that bit every exposed inch. And drill instructors who seemed to have been specifically designed to find your every weakness and exploit it. I loved it. Not in a fun way, not in an easy way, but in the way you love something that's finally challenging you at your actual level. That's not treating you like a delicate princess who needs to be protected from reality. That's not comparing you to someone else's arbitrary standard. Drill instructor Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, no relation to Mr. Rodriguez from the Veterans Center, was a 5'3" force of nature who could make grown men cry with a look. She was Latina, had served 2 tours in Afghanistan, and had exactly 0 patience for anyone's excuses. "I don't care who your daddy is," she shouted during our first week, pacing in front of our formation. "I don't care how much money your family has. I don't care if you were prom queen or valedictorian or captain of the chess team. Here, you are nothing until you earn something. Do you understand me? Yes, ma'am. It was the most liberating thing I'd ever heard. In boot camp, nobody cared that Victoria existed. Nobody knew about the country club or the fancy house or the disappointed parents. I was just Recruit Carter, and I would be judged entirely on my ability to perform. The physical training was brutal. I'd been in shape from soccer, but this was different. Running in boots through sand, obstacle courses that seemed designed by someone who hated joy, PT sessions that left every muscle screaming. But I kept up. More than kept up. I excelled. The mental challenges were harder. Learning to follow orders without question, even when they seemed stupid. Learning to work with people I normally would never have chosen to associate with. Learning to trust that the person next to me had my back, even when I barely knew their name. But here's what nobody tells you about boot camp. It's also where you start to discover who you really are when everything else is stripped away. When you can't rely on family connections or money or your previous reputation, you find out what you're actually made of. I was made of something stronger than I'd known. During the Crucible, the final 54-hour test that's basically 3 days of hell designed to see who breaks, I found myself leading my team through a problem-solving scenario. We had to get our entire unit over a 12-foot wall using only 2 boards and a rope. Everyone was exhausted, running on maybe 6 hours of sleep over 3 days, and tempers were fraying. "Carter, you take point," Staff Sergeant Rodriguez barked. "Let's see what you got." I looked at the wall, at the materials, at my team. 11 other women, all as tired and sore as I was. Some of them had been my friends during training. Some I'd butted heads with. Right now, none of that mattered. "Okay," I said, "here's what we're going to do." I laid out a strategy, using the boards to create leverage, having the strongest people in specific positions, organizing by height and weight to maximize efficiency. It was like running a soccer play, honestly. Different pieces moving in coordination toward a single goal. We got everyone over the wall in 12 minutes, one of the fastest times in our company. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez gave the slightest nod. "Good work, Carter." Coming from her, that was like a standing ovation. When we graduated boot camp, I was in the top 5% of my class. I received a meritorious promotion to private first class. I stood on that parade deck in my dress blues, looking out at the crowd of families who'd come to watch. My parents weren't there. Neither was Victoria. Coach Williams had made the drive from Connecticut. She was crying in the stands, holding a homemade sign with my name on it. After the ceremony, I found her in the crowd. She hugged me hard. "You did it," she said. "Elaine, you actually did it. Thanks for coming. You didn't have to." Are you kidding? I wouldn't have missed this for anything. I took a photo with her, both of us smiling, my new PFC rank gleaming on my uniform. I posted it on Facebook that night from my phone. "Graduated MCRD Paris Island Semper Fi." My mom commented 3 days later, "That's nice, dear." Victoria didn't comment at all. But Staff Sergeant Rodriguez found me before I shipped out to my first duty station. "Carter, you got potential. Real potential. You ever think about becoming an officer?" "An officer? Ma'am, I just graduated boot camp." "I know what I see. You're smart, you lead naturally, and you don't quit. Marine Corps needs officers like that. Think about it. Do your enlisted time, but think about OCS, Officer Candidate School. You could go far." Those words planted a seed. Maybe I could go far. Maybe I could become something my family never imagined. Maybe I already was. My first deployment came faster than I expected. Age 21, barely 2 years in, and I was on a transport heading to Afghanistan as an intelligence specialist. My language aptitude tests had been high. Turns out all those years of being ignored at family dinners meant I'd gotten really good at listening, and I'd been fast-tracked into analysis work. Afghanistan was nothing like Connecticut, obviously, but it wasn't like the movies either. It was complicated and messy and frustrating and occasionally terrifying. It was also where I started to understand what Sarah from the Veterans Center had meant about purpose. My job was to analyze intelligence reports, interpret signals data, and help our commanders make informed decisions. Every piece of information I processed could mean the difference between a successful mission and a disaster, could mean people coming home or not coming home. It mattered, really mattered. I threw myself into it. I learned Pashto basics, enough to understand conversations and read simple documents. I studied the cultural dynamics, the tribal structures, the complex political relationships that define the region. I worked 18-hour days and loved every minute of it. My commanding officer, Captain James Mitchell, was a Black Marine from Detroit who'd grown up with a family that thought he was crazy for enlisting instead of taking the factory job they'd lined up for him. They wanted me to be practical, he told me one night when we were both stuck in the operations center, analyzing a time-sensitive situation. Said the military was for people who couldn't do anything else. Funny how they changed their tune when I made captain. Did they actually change their tune? Or did they just start bragging about you at parties while still thinking you made the wrong choice? He laughed. Damn, Carter, you got some family issues we need to talk about? Don't we all, sir? Fair point. But here's the thing. I stopped trying to prove anything to them years ago. I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing it for me, for the Marines next to me, for the mission. Their opinion is just noise. I thought about that a lot, about the difference between proving people wrong and proving yourself right. I was awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal 6 months into my deployment for exceptional performance during a complex intelligence operation. It wasn't a big deal in the grand scheme of things. Lots of people got achievement medals, but it felt significant to me. I posted a generic photo on Facebook, deployed somewhere doing the thing. Miss you all. Victoria commented, stay safe, I guess. Dad and Mom didn't react to the post at all. Captain Mitchell saw me looking at my phone and shook his head. You still seeking their approval? No, I said. I don't think so. I guess I wish they cared enough to even pretend to be interested. Their loss, Carter. Trust me, their loss. At 24, I was commissioned as a second lieutenant after completing officer candidate school. The training was even more intense than boot camp. They were testing not just physical ability, but judgment, leadership under stress, decision-making in impossible situations. I thrived. As a platoon commander, I was responsible for 40-plus Marines, men and women who would follow my orders, who trusted me to make good decisions, who looked to me for leadership. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Some of them were older than me. Most of them had more enlisted experience. But they didn't care about that. They cared about whether I could do the job, whether I would take care of them, whether I would make smart decisions when lives were on the line. I worked my ass off to prove I could. I studied tactics and strategy. I spent extra time on the range making sure my marksmanship was perfect. I learned the names of everyone in my platoon, learned about their families, their goals, their fears. I made it my mission to know my Marines better than anyone else did. Corporal Davis, a 22-year-old from rural Kentucky, pulled me aside after a particularly grueling training exercise. Ma'am, can I ask you something? Of course, Davis. Why'd you join? You don't seem like, you talk like you went to college. You could probably be doing something easier than this. I thought about how to answer that. I joined because this is where I wanted to be, because I wanted to be part of something that matters, because I wanted to earn respect instead of having it handed to me based on my last name. He nodded slowly. My family thinks I'm wasting my potential, said I should have gone to college, gotten a desk job. What do you think? I think I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, ma'am. Then that's what matters, Davis. That conversation reminded me why I loved the Corps. These were my people, the ones who understood that purpose mattered more than prestige, that respect was earned through action, not inherited through family connections. When I made captain at 27, younger than average, I went home on leave to visit my parents. First time in almost a year. Victoria was there too. She'd gotten engaged to Brad Morrison, a corporate lawyer whose father was a federal judge. The whole family was buzzing about the engagement, about the wedding planning, about what a perfect couple they made. We sat at dinner, the same formal dining room table where I'd been laughed at for my military dreams so many years ago. So, Elaine, Mom said, passing the roast, are you still in the Marines? Still, like it was a phase I should have outgrown by now. Yes, Mom. I'm still in the Marines. I'm a captain now. That's nice. She said it the same way she'd say, "That's nice," if I told her I'd gotten a new houseplant, then immediately turned to Victoria. "Vicky, tell us more about the venue you're looking at. The one in the Hamptons?" Victoria launched into a detailed description of the beachfront property, the tent setup, the flowers she wanted. The conversation flowed around me like I wasn't there. Brad's father, Judge Morrison, was there for the dinner. He asked me a few polite questions about my service, the kind of questions people ask when they're being nice but not actually interested. "Do you enjoy it?" he asked. "Very much, sir." "Well, that's good. Everyone needs to find their calling, I suppose." The subtext was clear, even if that calling is something as peculiar as the military. After dinner, Victoria cornered me in the kitchen while I was helping clean up, or trying to. Mom kept shooing me away from the good china like I might break it. "So when are you going to do something real with your life?" Victoria asked. She was on her third glass of wine, getting that particular kind of loose that made her say the quiet parts out loud. "I have a real life, Victoria." "You know what I mean, a real career, real money, marriage maybe. Or are you too busy playing soldier to meet anyone?" "I'm not playing anything. I'm a Marine Corps officer." Okay. She held up her hands. "Don't get all defensive. I'm just saying you're almost 30. Mom and Dad are worried about you." "They have a funny way of showing it. They just want you to be successful." "I am successful." Victoria laughed. "Successful like me, Elaine. That's what they mean." And there it was, the fundamental truth of our family dynamic. There was only one acceptable path to success, and Victoria was on it. I was on something else entirely, and no matter what I achieved, it would never count as real success to them. I left Connecticut 2 days early, told them I had training I needed to get back to, which was technically true. I always had training. Back at base, I dove into work. I'd been selected for a special assignment, liaison work with international coalition partners, crisis response planning, strategic operations, high-level stuff that required security clearance and constant travel. I couldn't talk about it with my family even if they'd asked, which they didn't. By the time I was 31, I'd been promoted to major, the youngest female Marine major on the East Coast, they told me. It came with new responsibilities, a new position at the Pentagon, briefings with senior leadership. I posted nothing on social media about it. My Facebook profile still listed my job as United States Marine Corps, with no rank, no details. Let them think I was still entry level if they wanted to. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, who'd stayed in touch over the years, become something of a mentor, called me when she heard about the promotion. "Major Carter," she said. "Damn, I knew you had it in you." "Thanks, Gunny. Couldn't have done it without boot camp kicking my ass into shape." That boot camp stuff just revealed what was already there. "You did the work, Carter. You earned every bit of this." My family still thinks I'm wasting my time. And then your family is blind. Their loss. But listen, at some point you gotta stop caring what they think. You've proven everything you need to prove. To them, to yourself, to everyone. You're a Marine Corps major at 31. You're doing classified strategic work at the Pentagon. You've saved lives, led hundreds of Marines, represented your country on the international stage. If they can't see that, that's a them problem, not a you problem. She was right. Intellectually, I knew she was right. But emotionally, there was still that little girl at the Thanksgiving table, holding a Marine Corps brochure, hoping someone would ask her about it instead of laughing. The invitation to Victoria's engagement party came via text, cold, impersonal, exactly like most of our communication. "Having engagement party at Riverside Country Club next month. You should come if you're not deployed. Try to dress nice. It's formal. Brad's family is very prominent." I stared at that text for a long time. Try to dress nice. Like I didn't know how to dress for a formal event. Like I didn't own a uniform that literally defined the word formal. I started to type, "I can't make it," then deleted it. Started again. "Thanks for the invitation," then deleted that too. My lieutenant, a sharp young woman named Hayes, knocked on my office door. "Major, the briefing's in 10. "Thanks, Hayes. I'll be right there." She saw my phone, saw my expression. "Bad news?" "Family stuff, my sister's engagement party." "Fun." "Not really. My family thinks well, they don't really get what I do." Hayes raised an eyebrow. She knew exactly what I did. She worked directly under me on strategic planning operations. They don't get that you're a major who briefs generals, that you coordinate international crisis response, that you're literally one of the youngest female field-grade officers in the Corps. They think I'm still playing soldier, basically. Damn, that's... She paused. Actually, that's kind of perfect. Perfect how? You'll see. Come on, we've got a briefing to crush. I didn't know what she meant by that. Not yet. But I was about to find out. I replied to Victoria's text 3 days later. I'll be there. See you then. Her response came immediately. Great, can't wait. The emojis felt fake. Everything with Victoria felt fake lately, or maybe it always had been, and I was just finally seeing it clearly. My commanding officer, Colonel Reeves, called me into his office a week before the party. He was a gruff man in his 50s, career Marine, the kind of leader who'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed by much. Major Carter, I'm approving your leave request for your sister's engagement party. Thank you, sir. I appreciate... I'm not done. He leaned back in his chair. Take the time. Family is important, even when they don't understand what we do, especially then. Yes, sir. And Carter? Wear your dress blues. Show them what you've become. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Sometimes it was the smallest gestures of recognition that hit the hardest. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that Lieutenant Hayes and several Marines from my unit had other plans. They'd somehow gotten wind of where the party was being held. They'd made some calls, pulled some strings. The Friday before the party, Hayes knocked on my door again. Major, quick question. Your sister's party, it's formal, right? Like civilians in suits and dresses? Yeah, why? Just curious. Never been to one of those country club things. She was smiling, though. That smile that meant she knew something I didn't. Hayes, what are you planning? Nothing, ma'am. Just making sure I understand proper civilian formal etiquette, for future reference. I didn't believe her, but I also had 3 briefings to prep for and a strategic assessment due Monday, so I let it go. The Riverside Country Club looked exactly like every country club my family had ever dragged me to. Stone facade, circular driveway with a fountain, perfectly manicured lawns that probably cost more to maintain than most people's mortgages. Valet parking for the guests arriving in their Mercedes and BMWs. I pulled up in my 10-year-old Honda Civic wearing my dress blues. The valet's eyes widened slightly. You don't see many military uniforms at places like this. But he took my keys professionally. Inside, the ballroom was decorated like something from a wedding magazine. White roses everywhere, strings of lights, tables with linen so crisp they could probably stand up on their own. A jazz quartet played in the corner, waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres that were more art than food. I grabbed a champagne flute and headed for the edge of the room. Old habits. Find a wall, observe, stay out of the way. Victoria was in her element. Designer dress. Probably Vera Wang, knowing her taste. That probably cost 3 months of my salary. Hair and makeup professionally done. She was surrounded by her college friends and colleagues, all of them in expensive clothes, holding expensive drinks, laughing expensive laughs. Brad was next to her, looking every inch the successful attorney in his tailored suit. His parents were there too, Judge Morrison and his wife, both looking like they'd stepped out of a catalog for successful East Coast families. My parents spotted me from across the room. Mom's smile was tight. Dad gave a small nod. They made no move to come over. Victoria saw me and waved, then said something to her friends. They all turned to look. I saw one of them, Melissa, I think, from her sorority, wrinkle her nose slightly at my uniform. Then Victoria broke away from her group and headed toward me. She was already a little unsteady on her heels. Drinking started early, apparently. Elaine, you made it! She air-kissed both my cheeks, the way she'd learned to do in Manhattan. Oh, you wore your uniform. That's cute. The invitation said formal attire. I meant like a dress, something feminine. But I guess this is all you have, right? She laughed, but there was an edge to it. Come on, let me introduce you to Brad's family. They're dying to meet the whole Carter clan. She led me over to where Judge Morrison was holding court with several other distinguished-looking men in suits. I recognized the type. Men who were used to being the most important people in any room. Brad, honey, this is my little sister Elaine. Victoria's voice had that false brightness she used when she was performing. Elaine, this is Brad, and his father, Judge Morrison, and his uncle, Senator Hartley. I shook hands, returned polite greetings. Judge Morrison looked at my uniform with that particular expression wealthy civilians get around military personnel, a mix of awkward respect and deep confusion about life choices. Thank you for your service, he said automatically. Then, because he was a judge and couldn't help himself, what do you do in the Marines exactly? Strategic Planning and Operations, sir. Currently assigned to the Pentagon. Ah, well, that's good. Someone has to do those jobs, I suppose. He turned back to Senator Hartley to continue whatever conversation I'd interrupted. Victoria pulled me away. Come meet my friends. They're all so excited to hear about your adventures. But when we got to her friend group, no one asked about adventures. They asked polite questions with disinterested eyes. The kind of questions you ask when you're being nice, but don't actually care about the answers. So you're in the military? Is that hard? Do you get to travel? That's so brave. Each question delivered with a smile that didn't reach their eyes. Each response met with a or interesting before they turned back to talking about things that actually mattered to them. Victoria's wedding plans, someone's promotion at work, a new restaurant in Manhattan. I excused myself and found refuge on the balcony overlooking the golf course. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and pink. It was beautiful in that manufactured country club way. Quite a party. I turned. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez was standing there in a simple black dress. It took me a second to recognize her out of uniform. Gunny, what are you doing here? She smiled. Can't a girl enjoy a fancy party, open bar, good food, live music? How did you even know about this? Maybe I have my sources. Maybe I thought you could use a friendly face. She leaned against the railing next to me. How's it going in there? About like I expected. They have any idea who you actually are? No, and honestly, I'm not sure they'd care if they did. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. You know what I've learned, Carter? Some people are so invested in their version of you that they'll never see the real thing, even when it's standing right in front of them. Before I could respond, we heard raised voices from inside. Victoria's voice, specifically, getting louder and losing that polished edge. We went back in. Victoria was with a group of her sorority sisters near the bar, gesturing with her champagne glass. She was definitely several drinks past elegant now. I mean, seriously, she was saying, loud enough that people were starting to turn and look. Can you believe she wore her uniform to my engagement party? It's so desperate for attention. Victoria, one of her friends said quietly, trying to warn her. No, I'm serious. She's been playing soldier for 10 years now, and she still has nothing to show for it. Meanwhile, I'm at Goldman Sachs pulling 7 figures. Brad's at a top law firm, and she's still... What? Moving boxes on a military base somewhere? I felt my face flush hot. Rodriguez put a hand on my arm. Don't, she whispered. Not yet. Playing soldier, Victoria continued, on a roll now. God, remember when she tried to tell Mom and Dad she wanted to enlist? At Thanksgiving? We all thought it was a joke. But no, she actually did it. Threw away every opportunity. Threw away the money Dad offered for college. All so she could wear a costume and pretend to be important. Victoria, maybe you should... One of her friends tried again. What, I'm just being honest. Everyone's thinking it. My little sister, the professional disappoint... Excuse me. The voice was loud, commanding, trained to carry across noisy rooms and hostile environments. Gunnery Sergeant Thompson, one of the Marines from my unit in Afghanistan, stood at the ballroom entrance in full dress blues. The room went quiet. Thompson walked forward with that measured Marine Corps stride, followed by 11 other Marines, all in dress blues, all walking in formation. They carried a large presentation case between them. I froze. What the hell was happening? Victoria looked confused, her rant interrupted. What is this? Brad, did you arrange something? Brad looked just as confused. No, I thought maybe your parents... The Marines reached the center of the ballroom and stopped. Thompson did a sharp turn to face the crowd. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the room. Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the interruption. We're here tonight to honor an exceptional Marine. someone who exemplifies the core values of honor, courage, and commitment, someone who has served this country with distinction for over a decade. Victoria was still confused. That's sweet, but I don't understand why this is at my... Thompson continued. Someone who, during a compound attack in Kabul, personally coordinated the evacuation of 23 civilians and 4 wounded Marines while under direct fire. Someone who received the Navy Cross for extraordinary heroism. The Navy Cross, third highest military decoration. I'd never told my family about it, never posted it on social media. It had felt too personal, too important to turn into a photo opportunity. Thompson turned. Major Elaine Carter, would you please come forward? The room erupted in whispers. I heard Victoria's voice above them all. Wait, Major! Elaine is a major! My legs felt shaky, but Rodriguez gave me a small push. Go on, Major. Time to step into the light. I walked forward through the silent crowd. Every eye in the room was on me. I could see my parents' faces shocked and pale, Victoria's mouth hanging open, Judge Morrison standing straighter, suddenly looking at me with new eyes. Thompson saluted. I returned it. The other Marines snapped to attention. Major Carter, Thompson said, his voice ringing clear. We are here tonight to present you with a token of appreciation from your unit. But more than that, we're here to ensure that everyone in this room understands exactly who you are and what you've accomplished. He nodded to Corporal Kim, who opened the presentation case. Inside was a framed collection. My Navy Cross, photographs from deployments, commendations, letters of appreciation from generals and foreign dignitaries. But Thompson wasn't done. Major Carter is not just a decorated combat veteran. She's not just a field-grade officer. She has just been selected as assistant to the Deputy Commandant for plans, policies, and operations at the Pentagon. At 32 years old, she is one of the youngest female officers ever to receive this assignment. Judge Morrison suddenly stood up from his table. Wait, Carter? Major E. Carter? I reviewed your brief on the Somalia crisis response for the Senate Armed Services Committee. That was brilliant work. I had no idea. He looked at Victoria, then at me. You're that Major Carter? Victoria looked like she'd been slapped. You never said you were a major. You never said any of this. I tried, I said quietly. At 14, at 18, every time I came home, you weren't interested in listening. Thompson continued, merciless in his precision. Major Carter has also established educational programs for women in conflict zones, coordinated humanitarian aid operations across 3 continents, and learned 4 languages to facilitate coalition building. She has briefed the Secretary of Defense personally on multiple occasions. Captain Rodriguez, Maria Rodriguez, my first drill instructor, stepped forward. I hadn't even seen her come in. She was in her dress blues now, medals gleaming. I had the honor of being Major Carter's drill instructor at Paris Island, she said. I see thousands of recruits. Most are good. Some are great. Major Carter? She was special from day one, not because things came easy to her, because when things got hard, she got harder, because she led without needing recognition, because she chose service over comfort, purpose over prestige. Lieutenant Hayes stepped forward next. Of course she was here. This whole thing had her fingerprints all over it. I served directly under Major Carter at the Pentagon, Hayes said. I've worked with dozens of senior officers. Major Carter is the best leader I've ever seen. She knows every Marine under her command personally. She makes decisions that save lives. She represents this country on the world stage with distinction. And she does it all with grace, intelligence, and absolute dedication. The room was completely silent now except for Hayes's voice. The Marine Corps doesn't care about your family name, Hayes continued. It doesn't care how much money you make or what kind of car you drive. It cares about character, competence, and commitment. By those standards, Major Carter is exceptional. By any standard, really. She looked directly at Victoria. You called her service playing soldier. Ma'am, with all due respect, Major Carter has dedicated her life to protecting the freedoms you enjoy, including the freedom to stand in this fancy country club and disparage her service while knowing absolutely nothing about it. Victoria's face crumpled. She was crying now, mascara running. I didn't know. Nobody told me. She tried, Hayes said simply. You didn't listen. More Marines came forward one by one, sharing stories. The time I stayed up for 36 hours straight to coordinate a rescue operation. The cultural sensitivity training I'd developed that was now being used corps-wide. The mentorship I'd provided to junior officers. The missions I couldn't talk about, but that had made real differences in real places. My mother was crying silently at her table. My father's face was unreadable. That lawyer mask he wore when he was processing something he didn't want to feel. Other guests were Googling me on their phones. I could see the glow of screens, people reading articles about operations I'd been part of, commendations I'd received, speeches I'd given at military conferences. A woman I didn't recognize, someone's aunt or family friend, stood up. I'm a Navy veteran myself, she said. Served in the first Gulf War. Major Carter. It's an honor to be in the same room as you. She saluted. Then another person stood, a man in his 60s. Army, Vietnam, thank you for your service, Major. Then another, and another. Veterans scattered throughout the crowd, standing, saluting, showing respect in a way my family never had. Judge Morrison approached me directly. Major Carter, I owe you an apology. I was dismissive earlier. I had no idea about your service record, your current position. I've been trying to get someone from the Pentagon to consult on a military justice reform committee I'm chairing. Would you be willing to discuss it? Of course, sir. Have your office contact me through official channels. He actually looked embarrassed. I will. Absolutely. He glanced at Victoria, who was still crying. Your sister is very lucky to have you. Is she? I asked quietly, because she spent the last hour telling everyone how disappointing I am. Victoria let out a sob. Brad was trying to comfort her, but she pushed him away. She stumbled toward me, mascara streaked, champagne tipsy, completely undone. You let me make a fool of myself, she said. You stood there and let me say all those horrible things when you knew you were a major, a decorated veteran, a Pentagon official. I kept my voice level. Yes, Victoria, I knew. But here's the thing. I shouldn't have to be all those things for my career to be valid. I shouldn't have to achieve the rank of major before my family thinks my choices matter. The Marines is honorable service regardless of rank. But you could have told me. You could have corrected me. I tried. For years. You weren't interested. You made assumptions and held on to them because they fit your narrative better than the truth. My mother approached, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. Elaine, sweetie, we're so proud of you. We just didn't understand. You didn't try to understand, I said. When I said I wanted to serve, you said I was embarrassing you. When I came home on leave, you changed the subject to talk about Victoria's bonuses. You chose ignorance, Mom. Don't pretend this is about understanding. But we're your family, Dad said. He'd finally stood up, finally approached. We want to be part of your life. Now you do. After you found out I'm a major. After I have an important Pentagon position. After a federal judge recognized my name. If I'd washed out of boot camp, if I was still a private, would you want to be part of my life then? He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. Thompson and the other Marines were standing quietly to the side, letting this play out. Hayes caught my eye and gave me a small nod. You got this. I don't need your validation anymore, I said. And I meant it. I felt it deep in my bones. I spent years trying to earn it, trying to be good enough, accomplished enough, successful enough by your standards. But I finally realized something. Your standards were wrong. Your definition of success was narrow and shallow and meaningless. That's not fair, Victoria said, but her voice was small. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Let me show you something. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a text chain. This is from 3 months ago. You asked what I was doing. I said I was working on a strategic briefing. You wrote back, and I quote, "Still playing G.I. Jane? When you getting a real job?" I turned the phone so she could see it. I just returned from a classified briefing at the Pentagon about international crisis response. I was helping coordinate a multinational military operation. But to you, it was just playing pretend. Victoria looked at the screen and started crying harder. Here's another one, I continued. From last Christmas, I couldn't come home because I was deployed. You posted on Facebook, Family Christmas, missing one sister, but we're all here who matter. Who matter, Victoria? You literally said I didn't matter. I was drunk when I posted that, she whispered. Drunk words are sober thoughts. I put my phone away. I'm not telling you this to be cruel. I'm telling you so you understand. This isn't about one comment tonight. This is 15 years of dismissal, mockery, and contempt. 15 years of being treated like my choices were less valid than yours, just because they were different. Brad was looking at Victoria like he was seeing her for the first time. His parents were watching with identical expressions of discomfort. This was not how elegant country club engagement parties were supposed to go. I'm sorry, Victoria said. I'm so sorry. I was awful. I was a terrible sister. I thought I was better than you. I thought my success was more real than yours. I know you did. Can you forgive me? I looked at her, really looked at her. Saw the little girl who'd always been the favorite, who'd grown up believing the world revolved around her achievements, who'd never had to question whether she mattered because everyone had always told her she did. Maybe, I said, eventually, but not right now. Right now, I need you to understand something. Apologizing doesn't erase 15 years of damage. Being sorry doesn't mean I have to immediately welcome you back into my life like nothing happened. What do you want me to do? I want you to learn. I want you to go to therapy and figure out why you needed to look down on me to feel good about yourself. I want you to understand that different paths can be equally valid. I want you to recognize that being a Marine isn't a consolation prize or a backup plan. It's a calling, a purpose, a life's work that matters. Thompson stepped forward. Major, we should probably head out. Let you and your family have space. I nodded, turned to the Marines who'd shown up to honor me. Thank you, all of you. This meant more than you know. Semper Fi, Major, Thompson said. Semper Fi. They filed out in formation, leaving behind the frame display and a ballroom full of people who were seeing me clearly for the first time in my life. The party continued, but it was subdued. People spoke in hushed voices. Victoria had disappeared into a back room with Brad and their mothers. My father approached me cautiously. Elaine, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Dad. I was wrong. About the Marines, about your choices. I thought... He trailed off. I thought I was protecting you. I thought you were making a mistake. You thought I wasn't as good as Victoria, let's be honest. He flinched but didn't deny it. Maybe I did think that. Victoria made things look so easy. She followed the path we understood. You chose something we didn't know how to value. So you didn't try to value it at all. No, we didn't. That's on us, on me. He looked old suddenly, tired in a way I'd never seen before. Can we fix this? I don't know. That depends on whether you can accept me for who I actually am, not who you wanted me to be. If you can see my career as equal to Victoria's, not less than. If you can be proud of me without needing me to be something I'm not. I am proud of you. Are you? Or are you impressed now that you know my rank? There's a difference. He thought about that. I think I need to learn the difference. Will you give me that chance? Maybe, after some time. Judge Morrison approached with his wife. Major Carter, I want to apologize for my family's behavior. The way we spoke to you earlier was unacceptable. You didn't know, sir. That's not an excuse. I'm a federal judge. I should know better than to make assumptions about people based on superficial factors. He paused. My son is very lucky to be marrying into your family. I hope he realizes that the real prize isn't just Victoria. It was a gracious thing to say, but it stung too, because it was still comparing, still measuring one sister against the other, still operating in that framework where someone had to be better, more valuable, more worthy. With respect, Judge Morrison, there is no prize. We're both people who've made different choices. The problem was never that Victoria succeeded, it's that her success was used as a weapon against my different kind of success. He nodded slowly. You're right, absolutely right. I apologize. People started leaving after that. The party that was supposed to celebrate Victoria and Brad's engagement had turned into something else entirely. As guests filed out, several stopped to shake my hand. thank me for my service, ask about my work. My mother approached as the crowd thinned. Will you come to the wedding when it happens? I don't know, Mom. Honestly, I don't know. What would it take for you to come, to be part of this family again? I'd need to know you see me, really see me. Not the version of me you wanted, not the disappointment, not the comparison point for Victoria's successes. Me, the actual person I became, the Marine, the officer, the leader, all of it. I want to try, she said. I want to do better. Then start by not making this about you. Start by recognizing that I don't owe you immediate forgiveness. Start by understanding that you can't make 15 years of neglect disappear with one conversation. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Okay, I'll try. Victoria finally emerged from the back room. Her makeup was gone, washed away by tears. She looked younger without it, more vulnerable, more like the sister I'd grown up with before college and Wall Street and sophisticated cruelty. I want to talk, she said. Really talk. Not now, not here, but soon. Can we do that? What would we talk about? Everything. How I made you feel, why I did it, how to fix it, if we can fix it. She took a shaky breath. I've been going to a therapist for a few months. Not about this, about other stuff. But she talks about family dynamics, about golden child and scapegoat patterns. I'm starting to understand what I did to you. That surprised me. You're in therapy? Yeah, turns out being perfect all the time is exhausting. Turns out maybe I'm not as happy as I pretend to be. She laughed bitterly. Funny, right? You're off saving the world and I'm having panic attacks in bathroom stalls at Goldman Sachs. That's not funny, Victoria. That sounds really hard. See? That's what I'm talking about. I spend an hour destroying you in front of everyone and you're still being kind. You're still being the better person. How do you do that? Years of practice being dismissed, I said. You develop either bitterness or grace. I chose grace, mostly. I don't deserve grace from you. Probably not, I agreed. But that's the thing about grace. It's not about deserving, it's about choosing. She wiped her eyes. Can I call you in a few days? When I'm sober and you've had time to process this disaster? Maybe. I'm not making promises, Victoria. I need to protect myself. I need to figure out what kind of relationship I want with this family, if any. I understand. She started to walk away, then turned back. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I'm really, truly sorry, and I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. I'm proud of my sister, the Marine. It was the first time she'd ever said those words to me. I nodded, not trusting my voice. I left the country club an hour later. The valet brought my Honda Civic around. It looked ridiculous among all the luxury cars, but I didn't care. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez walked out with me. That was quite a night, she said. Hayes orchestrated this whole thing, didn't she? Hayes, Thompson, me, about a dozen other Marines who've served with you. We figured you'd never do it yourself, never make them see who you really are. So we decided to do it for you. Thank you. I don't know if I should be grateful or mortified. Both is fine, she grinned. You handle yourself well in there, Major. Firm but fair, honest but not cruel. That's leadership. Didn't feel like leadership. Felt like finally standing up for myself. Same thing sometimes. I drove back to my apartment in Arlington. Small, functional, nothing fancy. I'd never cared about fancy. I had what I needed, and what I needed was purpose, not prestige. My phone buzzed all night. Messages from Marines I'd served with, congratulating me, checking in. A few messages from extended family members who'd been at the party, saying they had no idea they're so proud they hope I'll stay in touch. Nothing from Victoria until late. Just one text. Thank you for not destroying me worse than I destroyed myself tonight. I deserved it, and you didn't do it. That says everything about who you are versus who I am. I stared at that message for a long time before responding, work on yourself, then we'll talk. 3 months passed. I threw myself into work, briefings, operations planning, coordinating with international partners. The job was challenging, demanding, exactly what I needed. I was good at it, great at it even. Victoria texted occasionally, updates from therapy, apologies, insights about herself that must have been painful to type. I responded, but kept it brief. I wasn't ready for more. She sent me the wedding invitation. Same country club, 6 months away. Inside was a handwritten note. No expectations, no pressure, but I'd really like you there. Not because you're my sister and it would look good, because I'm trying to build something real with you. And I think that starts with honoring what matters in your life. You can bring guests, your whole unit if you want, whatever makes you comfortable. V. I put the invitation on my desk and looked at it for days. Hayes knocked on my office door one afternoon. You going to your sister's wedding, Major? Still deciding. Can I give you some unsolicited advice? When has that stopped you before, Lieutenant? She grinned. Fair point. Here it is. Don't go for her. Go for you. If you want to see if she's really changing, if you want to give your family another chance, if you're curious about whether reconciliation is possible, go. But if you're going out of obligation, out of guilt, out of some sense that you owe them, don't. You don't owe them anything. When did you get so wise? I have an excellent commanding officer. I've learned from the best. 2 weeks before the wedding, I called Victoria. She answered on the first ring. Elaine, I have one question, I said. If I come to your wedding, can you tell me 3 things about my career that don't involve my rank? Can you tell me why I chose this path? Can you see me as something other than not you? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, you chose the Marines because you wanted to be part of something bigger than yourself, because you value purpose over prestige, because you're naturally inclined toward leadership and service, and the military gave you a structure where those traits could flourish. I was stunned. Your career highlights include establishing educational programs for women in conflict zones, she continued. You coordinated humanitarian aid across 3 continents. You learned 4 languages, Pashto, Arabic, French, and basic Mandarin, to build coalition relationships. You focus on strategic planning and crisis response. You mentor junior officers. You care about your Marines more than your own advancement. How do you know all that? Because I've spent the last 3 months reading everything I could find about you, every article, every commendation that's public record. I called Lieutenant Hayes. She gave me her number at the party and asked her to tell me about working with you. I even found your old soccer coach and asked her about you as a teenager. You talked to Coach Williams? Yeah. She said you were the most naturally gifted leader she'd ever coached. Said you always put the team first. Said she wasn't surprised you became a major because she was surprised you weren't running the whole Marine Corps by now. I laughed despite myself. That sounds like Coach Williams. Elaine, I spent 15 years not knowing you, not wanting to know you. I'm trying to fix that. I'm trying to see you clearly. It's hard, and I'm not perfect at it, but I'm trying. Why? Why does it matter now? Because I almost lost you. Because I was a terrible sister, and I want to do better. Because my therapist helped me realize I was using you as a measuring stick to make myself feel superior. And that's fucked up, and I need to stop. Because you're amazing, and I've wasted so much time not seeing it. I took a breath. I'll come to the wedding. But I'm not promising we're suddenly going to be close. I'm not promising everything is fixed. I'm promising to show up and see if reconciliation is possible. That's all I'm asking. Thank you. Seriously, thank you. Victoria, one more thing. Yeah? Tell me about your panic attacks. Tell me what's really going on with you. And for the first time in our adult lives, my sister was honest with me. She told me about the pressure, the impossible standards, the way she'd built her entire identity around achievement and was starting to realize how hollow it felt, about how she didn't even like most of her friends, about how she was scared of marrying Brad because what if she'd chosen him for the wrong reasons, about how she looked at my life, my actual life, now that she'd bothered to learn about it and saw purpose and meaning she didn't have. We talked for 2 hours. Really talked, not just performed at each other. When we hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt about my family in years. Hope. The wedding was beautiful. Victoria in white, Brad in a tuxedo, the country club decorated like a fairy tale. I wore my dress blues again, and this time when I walked in, people smiled. Judge Morrison shook my hand warmly. Several guests, including Senator Hartley, asked about my work with genuine interest. My parents approached before the ceremony. Dad hugged me, actually hugged me, for the first time in years. "We're glad you're here," he said. "Me too, I think." Mom held my hand. "I've been reading about your work, the humanitarian missions, the educational programs. Elaine, I had no idea how much good you've done in the world." "It's just my job, Mom." "No, it's not just a job. It's a calling. I see that now. I'm sorry it took me so long." The ceremony was moving. Victoria and Brad exchanged vows that sounded real, not performative. When they kissed, the room erupted in applause. At the reception, Victoria found me at my table. "Dance with me?" We went to the dance floor. The band was playing something slow and sweet. We swayed awkwardly. We'd never been the kind of sisters who danced together. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I know it wasn't easy." "It wasn't, but I'm glad I did. I'm trying to be better, not just with you, with everything. Brad and I are doing couples counseling before we even have problems, just to build healthy communication. I'm setting boundaries at work. I'm figuring out who I am outside of achievement." "That's really good, Victoria. I want to know you, the real you. Can we have dinner sometimes? Can I visit you in Arlington? Can we try to be actual sisters?" "We can try. No promises it'll work, but we can try." "That's enough. That's more than enough." Later, during the toasts, Brad's best man told a story about Brad and Victoria's first date. Then my father stood up, glass in hand. "I want to say something about my daughters," he said. The room quieted. "I have two remarkable daughters. Victoria, you've built an impressive career and we're so proud of you. But I also want to recognize Elaine, Major Elaine Carter, who I'm ashamed to say I didn't truly see for far too long. Elaine, you've dedicated your life to serving this country. You've saved lives, led hundreds of Marines, represented America on the world stage. You've done all of this with grace and humility and strength. I'm sorry it took me so long to tell you how proud I am, how proud I've always should have been." His voice cracked. "You didn't need my approval to be extraordinary. You were extraordinary all along. I just wasn't looking." The room applauded. Several people stood. Victoria was crying again, but this time from joy, not shame. I caught my father's eye and nodded. It wasn't forgiveness, not completely, but it was acknowledgement. It was a start. 6 months later, I sat in my Pentagon office with a photo on my desk. Not my biological family. Not yet. The photo showed my Marine unit, 12 men and women in dress blues, all of them grinning after a successful operation. My chosen family, the people who'd seen me clearly from the beginning. My phone rang. Victoria. "Hey, can we talk? Really talk?" "I have a meeting with the Joint Chiefs in 20 minutes. I can give you 15. 15 works. I wanted to tell you something. I've been doing this exercise in therapy where I write down things I admire about people I love, and I have a whole page about you. Want to hear it?" "Hit me." She read from her list. My strategic thinking, my commitment to service, the way I lead without needing credit, how I learned languages to connect with people, my mentorship of junior Marines, my resilience in the face of dismissal. When she finished, I was quiet for a moment. "Thank you," I said finally. "That means a lot." "It's all true. I see you now, Elaine, finally, and I'm so grateful I get to be your sister." "Me too." After we hung up, I looked at the Marine Corps flag on my wall, looked at my unit photo, looked at the commendations and memories and proof of a life well lived according to my own standards, not anyone else's. Sometimes the people who doubt you loudest are the ones who need your validation most, but you don't owe them proof. You owe yourself the life you choose to build. I built mine, and it was magnificent. Thanks for staying until the end. If this resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Semper Fi.